two types of experiences. One is the observation of the UAP, and the other one is an incident involving the witnesses in an interactive situation. For those people, it's very difficult. They're not being supported in the larger society, although the curiosity about UAP is definitely there.
Not only for first responders, but also for the medical and mental health professions. We're all involved, we're all stakeholders.
The following is my conversation with Dr. Keith Taylor and Ted Roe. Dr. Taylor was my very first podcast guest, and he took a bit of a risk on me as some weird dude from Instagram that wanted to talk about UFOs and UAP. But thankfully, he's back again to talk to me. Keith is a previous NYCD Assistant Commissioner, NYPD Special Assignment cop. He's taken down Bronx organised crime groups. He's a professor of criminal justice. He's collaborated with the FBI, taught incident management to Homeland Security, and was a 9/11 first responder and survivor. My second guest is Ted Roe. Ted is a seasoned professional with over 2 decades in small business management, UAP research, and aviation safety. He plays a key role at NARCAP.org, which is the National Aviation Reporting Centre on Anomalous Phenomenon, advocating for UAP recognition as an aviation hazard. Ted is striving to educate the mental health and medical community about UAP to prevent misdiagnosis. With a deep respect for data, he navigates policy, advocacy, and recognition for societal implications. 2 fascinating guests in their own right. So, the following is my conversation with Dr. Keith Taylor and Ted Roe. Thank you so much for joining me, Keith and Ted. I really appreciate your time. And hopefully we're here today to talk about UAPMed. And I wonder if perhaps one of you can kind of jump in and just kind of explain what it's about and how it kind of came to creation, really.
Well, in the UAP situation, there are 2 types of experiences. One is the observation of the UAP, and the other one is an incident involving the witnesses in an interactive situation. For those people, it's very difficult. They're not being supported in the larger society, although the curiosity about UAP is definitely there. So about 18 months ago, I set up UAPMed to help support those people by informing mental health and medical professionals about UAP information and UAP exposures so that we can encourage research and improve patient care. And we set it up as a coalition so that we could have partners and work with people with diverse interests, because the medical and mental health community is distributed widely across our infrastructure. It involves our first responders, it involves other aspects of social structure and government. And in that regard, Keith joins us to help us work on the first responders who have yet to be given any good instruction or direction around this particular topic. And with that, we developed a paper defining some of those recommendations. So that's basically what UAPMed is about. We also work with unhidden.org, which is a similar organization there in the UK.
Keith, how did you, first of all, I should just say, Keith was kind enough to be my very first podcast. He took a kind of a risk with this weird guy from Instagram who had made contact and said, would you do a podcast with me? And unlike a lot of other podcasters, you can kind of have a look at what their previous podcasters have been like, but you didn't have that with me. So you had to kind of take a bit of a leap of faith. So thanks for that, Keith. But are you, how did you get involved in it, Keith? And what's your sort of involvement?
Sure. Well, I'll skip right to my interaction with UAPMed and Ted. I'm law enforcement background, emergency management background, very interested in pushing this issue into those communities, law enforcement and public safety, emergency management. I contacted Ted and looked at the commonality of the issues, not only for first responders, but also for the medical and mental health professions. We're all involved, we're all stakeholders. And as a result of that collaboration, we came up with a white paper incorporating unidentified anomalous phenomenon incidents into first responder policies, procedures, and protocols, which is very straightforward. It's an introduction to the issue. It talks about the history briefly, about recent history, about how the government has, with the previous NDAAs, has looked at this issue in a very serious way. And I introduced the 2010 DIRD paper, which deals with injuries caused to military personnel as a result of the introduction of anomalous phenomena to them. And so that speaks to the issue of why first responders, public safety professionals need to have appropriate equipment, training, and policies that clearly allow them to have clear safety protocols when dealing with these types of incidents, and making sure that the general public is safe. And currently that does not exist anywhere. I know the stigma is a really important part of that, but I think once the government admits more information, that the stigma will be gone, and then there will be concern about what to do. So I want public safety to be ahead of that curve and be able to handle these situations as they would handle any other.
Makes perfect sense. And what, from your sort of research, firstly, when was this kind of, I think you did touch on this, Ted, but when did this kind of, when was it set up, or when did it go live, so to speak? And from your research, what have you kind of seen as the most kind of common effects that from the people that you're interacting with in terms of health?
So a great thing is that UAPMed.org is where the paper is located. You can download it easily there. And also, they have done a nice job of delineating the short-term and long-term medical and mental health effects that can occur as a result of exposure. And so they've done some of the hard work by parsing out what these types of things may be and how they can be mistaken as prosaic kinds of injuries. So, UAPMed has done quite a bit of the groundwork in terms of getting that information easily accessible for those in those professions that want to look into this further. I believe that as more information is revealed by government, there will be a real need for this kind of information for responsible elected leaders and those who handle medical and mental health and law enforcement and other issues to be able to have a good resource of information.
Sure. Ted, what are the sort of goals? Where would you like this to go? And have you had much kind of interaction or support from official kind of government sources? How are you finding that kind of interaction with them?
Well, the whole situation is formative right now. It's new. And we've been involved in legislative outreach. We've been talking to some of our elected officials about this and been well received. The process, I set this up about 18 months ago. I'd been cogitating on it for quite a while because I have UAP exposures. That's why I've been in this field as long as I have. And for your audience, I was a co-founder of the National Aviation Reporting Centre on Anomalous Phenomena in 1999 and was working on pilot and aviation reporting and cases right up until the government admitted that UAP are a hazard to aviation. And at that point, I was brought into the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics and invited to help them stand up a program, which I did. And in the process of doing that and seeing these new scientists and engineers learning about these phenomena, I realized that they were a bit vulnerable. They were very interested in how these things do what they do, but they hadn't really thought about why yet. And I think as the conversation matures, it's going to move in that direction. There's going to be a need for support and guidance in that area. And I wanted to get something going soon on that, which I did. It took us about most of a year to really stand the program up, and then we went live with it. And now we're in the process of building our coalition and establishing our own organizational goals and objectives.
Fantastic. Well, it's great to hear. I mean, I see that from my perspective, it's almost as if we kind of have to take it on ourselves, because there's such a slow uptake from official sources, government sources, for example, that, you know, Soul Foundation, Galileo Project, for example, and I know your organization you mentioned, National Aviation Reporting.
Unhidden.org, which is your group in the UK with John Priestland. They're taking up the cause on your side of the pond, and doing a good job. I actually sit in on a lot of their meetings and have been in sort of an advisory support role for them. And there's stigma everywhere, but it's different. The stigma in the United States is different because it's being let up on a little bit, because the government is stepping forward and saying, yes, UAP exist as described. They're a national security hazard. They're a hazard to aviation safety. And the stigma that's been generated around them is obstructing our ability to engage. The UK hasn't got there yet. So the stigma there is different, and the issues that John's dealing with over there are different. We have a program in Australia, same kind of concerns, same type of problem with a somewhat deaf government, and but a different profile in terms of what can happen to a person who, particularly a professional who takes an interest in this subject. The stigma is such that a lot of professional societies will offer punitive engagements if you spend too much time on the topic, or sound like you're too far off the beaten path of what they expect a professional to be talking about and thinking about. So we have a lot to do in terms of education and outreach, and it comes from the grassroots. I started this organization with just me, and then I brought on one other person and then two other people, and now I've got about 26 people right now working the program, and they're highly motivated, and about half of them have exposures of their own, including myself, and they understand what's at stake here. And there are many people in the UK with exposures as well, and they deserve to be heard and supported. Trauma is trauma, and in the mental health perspective, you know, they do what they can with it. Some of the issues, though, medically are a bit profound. They're different. We looks like radiation is playing a high role in people with medical injuries here, but it isn't well documented in the mainstream because nobody comes and talks to them. Nobody checks in with them immediately after it happens. Nobody is walking around with a Geiger counter checking the room. We just did a case where we became aware of a case involving two researchers who, in the course of their field studies, were assaulted by UAP. They have it documented on infrared film, and so we did an analysis of that. That's available on our YouTube channel at UAP Medical Coalition. And it just kind of, they had swollen lymph nodes. They experienced paralysis. These are kind of commonly reported in the field. So as medical science engages more, they're going to learn more about this. They're going to find out about traumatic brain injuries. They're going to find out about radiological exposures. They're going to find out about other types of issues that are either derived from direct UAP exposures or compounded by UAP exposures. So we're really trying to lay some foundation there so that the society has some means to engage and respond in a rational and reasonable way that we can look out for our people, in other words.
Superb. Well, I really applaud you. I think it's really important work, and it's fantastic that you've set this up, and that you're out there. People like yourselves are out there, and an organisation like that's out there. What would be the best way if people wanted to support to support you? So, how would they find you? What's the best place to find you, and how could they support you if they wanted to get involved?
Well, we have a website at UAPMed.org. We have a YouTube channel where we offer witness interviews and subject matter expert commentary. We have an active outreach program as well. So I try to handle every inquiry, and if I can't do it, if they're out of the country, I refer them to folks that are nearby to work there. And I've had inquiries from the UK, and I've put them back towards John and Unhidden.
Superb. Okay, brilliant. Well, I should just say that you're in Hawaii, aren't you? So we've got Keith in New York, you've got yourself, Ted, in Hawaii, and me over in England.
Actually, I'm in Alaska right now. I live between Hawaii and Alaska, and right now I'm in Alaska, as you can see. Although there's a lot of snow right now.
Okay, so I don't feel too jealous now. I was imagining
It's
it being
cold
very,
here.
very warm. Okay, fair enough. Okay, well, look, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Beautiful.
Thank
Brilliant.
you, James.
No problem
Really
at all. Take
appreciate
care of
it.
yourselves. Thanks very much.
Okay.
All right.
Take
Take care.
Cheers. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.